In what may be the biggest victory for the right in the culture war, Donald Trump ordered the Office of Management and Budget to cancel all critical race theory trainings and white privilege trainings, calling it a sickness in our country. For those that aren't familiar with these terms, they are a major component of the leftist identitarian ideology. They believe that all white people are inherently racist, only white people can be racist, and they believe that certain concepts like hard work, saving for the future, and even scheduling are components of whiteness. In my opinion, this is overtly white supremacist, but this ideology has become increasingly pervasive. And even though Donald Trump is making this move, I am not convinced we will see the end of it just because of this. In fact, it shouldn't have even gotten into government in the first place. Leftist identitarianism and critical race theory are also major components of the Black Lives Matter riots. The reason people are going around screaming that this country is racist and that police are racist is not because they believe these individuals are prejudiced against other people based on race. It's because they believe concepts like policing, concepts, like I said, scheduling, are inherently white supremacist. They've changed the definitions of these words. And this ideology, or non-theistic religion as some refer to it, is spreading dangerously fast. While this may be a victory, this is still just a counter move, and things may get worse before they get better. In fact, even though Donald Trump is canceling these things, they still have contracts that must be fulfilled. So Trump has said, to the legal extent that we can, shut it all down. Now, many on the left and many in media are saying, who's teaching people this? It's not real. It doesn't exist. But it does. And I have several examples for you. In one instance, scientists were ordered to write letters to marginalized people saying they are racist. And they have these people do these creepy struggle sessions where they publicly announce they're racist, even if they aren't, because the definitions are changing. For me, this is one of the most important issues of 2020 and for our country. Based on my background, I am adamantly opposed to this left-wing white supremacist ideology where they think every good thing that we've created came from white people, which is just not true. And it needs to be shut down. This is one move that I appreciate. I am glad Trump is making this move, but we must do more. To better understand what's going on, let's read the news, and I'm going to give you a simple breakdown of what critical race theory is. Because although many people understand the concept of leftist authoritarian identitarianism, they don't actually know what it is. And I know already the language is getting particularly confusing with lots of jargon. Identitarianism typically refers to government policy or law based on identity. And that's what the left is doing. Identity, of course, being your race, your gender, your immutable characteristics. Many of these people use purposefully verbose language to make it extremely difficult to understand. And that's something we can break down right now, and I'll show you exactly what's going on and why it is imperative Trump continues to go on the offensive against these creepy cultists. Before we get started, however, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give. There's a P.O. box if you'd like to send stuff, but the best thing you can do, share this video, especially this video. This is one of the most important issues of our lifetimes. If this ideology is allowed to persist, we are in serious trouble. This ideology flies in the face of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, and I will prove it to you. These people who hold these views do not want to judge people as equals. They want to judge you based on your skin color and your gender, and they say it. It is not what we have fought for. It is not progress. So please consider sharing this video. I don't have a big marketing department. You know, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News can pay a lot of money. I just have word of mouth. So if you think I'm doing a good job and you think this is important, please share this video. Hit the like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. Let's read the story. Now, of course, many news outlets don't understand how to frame this. Take a look at this. The Daily Mail says, White House cancels racial sensitivity training for all federal employees because it is, quote, un-American propaganda. Trump blasts classes on critical race theory and white privilege as a sickness in our country. Notice how they say racial sensitivity training. No, the letter that was issued said they will absolutely uphold equality. Critical race theory is not racial sensitivity training. It is racist indoctrination where they tell you straight up to hate people, to criticize them, hold them in disdain for the color of their skin. So I don't want to read the story. I want to break it down by going straight into the memo, what Donald Trump said, the letter from the Office of Management and Budget, and what is critical race theory and why is it in our government and what's being done about it. In this memo, we can see it says, Memorandum for the heads of executive departments and agencies from Russell Vought, Director. It has come to the president's attention that executive branch agencies have spent millions of taxpayer dollars to date, quote, training government workers to believe divisive anti-American propaganda. For example, according to press reports, employees across the executive branch have been required to attend trainings where they are told that virtually all white people contribute to racism, or where they are required to say that they benefit from racism. According to press reports, in some cases, these trainings have further claimed that there is racism embedded in the belief that America is the land of opportunity or the belief that the most qualified person should receive a job. These types of, quote, trainings not only run counter to the fundamental beliefs for which our nation has stood since its inception, but they also engender division and resentment within the federal workforce. We can be proud that as an employer, the federal government has employees of all races, ethnicities, and religions. We can be proud that Americans from all over the country seek to join our workforce and dedicate themselves to public service. We can be proud of our continued efforts to welcome all individuals who seek to serve their fellow Americans as federal employees. However, we cannot accept our employees receiving training that seeks to undercut our core values as Americans and drive division within our workforce. The president has directed me to ensure that federal agencies cease and desist from using taxpayer dollars to fund these divisive, un-American propaganda training sessions. Accordingly, to that end, the Office of Management and Budget will shortly issue more detailed guidance on implementing the president's directive. In the meantime, all agencies are directed to begin to identify all contracts or other agency spending related to any training on critical race theory, white privilege, or any other training or propaganda effort that teaches or suggests either one, that the United States is an inherently racist or evil country, two, that any race or ethnicity is inherently racist or evil. In addition, all agencies should begin to identify all available avenues within the law to cancel any such contracts and or to divert federal dollars away from these un-American propaganda training sessions. The president and his administration are fully committed to the fair and equal treatment of all individuals in the U.S. The president has a proven track record of standing for those whose voice has long been ignored and who have failed to benefit from all our country has to offer. And he intends to continue to support all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed. The divisive, false, and demeaning propaganda of the critical race theory movement is contrary to all we stand for as Americans and should have no place in the federal government. We need to actually break down what this means, because already, I assure you, the far left is screeching, Trump is a racist, it's not true, he's trying to end equality trainings or other nonsense. Let me show you how absurd critical race theory is. According to Wikipedia, critical race theory is a theoretical framework in the social sciences developed out of postmodern philosophy that uses critical theory to examine society and culture as they relate to categorizations of race, law, and power. It began as a theoretical movement within American law schools in the mid to late 1980s as a reworking of critical legal studies on race issues, and is loosely unified by two common themes. Firstly, critical race theory proposes that white supremacy and racial power are maintained over time, and in particular, that the law may play a role in this process. Secondly, critical race theory work has investigated the possibility of transforming the relationship between law and racial power, as well as pursuing a project of achieving racial emancipation and anti-subordination more broadly. They go on to say critics of CRT, critical race theory, including Richard Posner and Alex Kaczynski, take issue with its foundations in postmodernism and reliance on moral relativism, social constructionism, and other tenets contrary to classical liberalism. I got to stop right there, because already, what does any of this mean? Classical liberalism is the basis, for the most part, for our country. The idea that you need the consent of the governed to run a country and that individuals have rights. Under critical race theory, it's mostly about the collective. In fact, take a look at this one segment. Whiteness as property. From the critical race theory perspective, the white skin that some Americans possess is akin to owning a piece of property. In that it grants privileges to the owner that a renter, in this case a person of color, would not be afforded. Cheryl L. Harris and Gloria Ladson Billings describe this notion of whiteness as property, whereby whiteness is the ultimate property that whites alone can possess, valuable just like property. The property functions of whiteness, rights to disposition, rights to use and enjoyment, reputation and status property, and the absolute right to exclude make the American dream more likely and attainable for whites as citizens. This is inherently and overtly racist. They talk about something called whiteness, and they don't talk about whiteness as in your skin color. They kind of do. But they've basically created this idea that if anyone acts a certain way, they are acting white. They believe that time, the concept of time itself, is racist, that scheduling your work is racist. They believe that working hard is racist, and they believe that saving for your future is also racist. This is what Trump is stopping, and I am not trying to exaggerate. National Nuclear Labs employees sent to seminar that claimed rugged individualism and hard work are white male culture. The seminar for Sandia Labs executives also involved writing apology letters to marginalized people. From Reason, the National Museum of African American History and Culture in D.C. found itself in a small scandal last month after visitors to its website discovered an infographic that listed hard work and rational thought as traits of white culture. The crude stereotypes drew well-deserved derision. Right. These people believe that white individuals from Europe created basically everything we do, which is insane considering people all over the world know how to do math, to time things, how to calculate the circumference of the earth. These were not the requirements of European settlers coming in and bringing knowledge. Asia developed a ton of technologies. These people are inherently racist and, in my opinion, indoctrinated into a paranoid delusional state. They go on to say, it's not just the museum. Last year, Sandia National Laboratories, a federal contractor responsible for building the U.S.'s nuclear weapons, sent its executives to mandatory diversity training with the White Men's Caucus on eliminating racism, sexism, and homophobia in organizations. This group's educational materials, which were obtained by Christopher Rufo, a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, include many of the same racial stereotypes. As Rufo writes, participants were told that the roots of white male culture consist of rugged individualism, a can-do attitude, hard work, striving towards success, which sound good, but are in fact devastating to women and people of color. In fact, the trainers claim that white male culture leads to lowered quality of life at work and at home, reduced life expectancy, unproductive relationships, and high stress. It also forces this white male standard on women and minorities. The seminar also asked white males to recite a series of white privilege statements and male privilege statements. It concluded with its white male participants writing letters of apology to marginalized people whom they may have harmed, according to Rufo, who made the documents available on his website. Of course, working hard, a can-do attitude, are elements of many other cultures as well, and they've all been very successful. It is universally true that working hard and saving for the future and having a can-do attitude lead you to success. There are other factors involved, and sometimes there are negative things that can impact you, but this is insane to suggest. As if people in Asia couldn't figure out how to work hard. In fact, they did. It wasn't white people who invented or developed their culture and their architecture and their farming techniques or their language. That is all insane to suggest. And it results in nightmarish policies like this. California Proposition 16, repeal Prop 209 Affirmative Action Amendment. Most of you know this already. But because this strikes at the core of my being and is one of the principal reasons why I will be voting for Donald Trump, I want to make sure this is known far and wide by everyone. That Democrats in California are actively seeking to repeal civil rights law. And guess what? They've already done it. It's going to referendum in November. A yes vote supports the constitutional amendment to repeal Prop 209, which stated that the government and public institutions cannot discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to persons on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in public employment, public education, and public contracting. What we are seeing in California is the exact opposite of what Trump just did. I am shocked by this. And I didn't believe it the first time I heard it. They're actively doing this. The problems that we're seeing, like this Sandia Labs, where they're telling people all of these things are whiteness, are not isolated to just Sandia Labs. Many on the left are saying, please give me examples of this. Well, I can give you this as the best example of these diversity trainings. It is believed they are, in fact, affecting many other agencies. It's not just this one organization or this one agency that has to do these trainings. But we can see that critical race theory and leftist identitarianism is spreading far and wide. And I assure you, you will not want to live in this world. These people are insane, authoritarian racists, and they're violent. Take a look at this story from back in July 9th. Military Times says, Army investigates handout suggesting Trump campaign slogan constitutes covert white supremacy. Now, that's the headline, but I don't believe that's the real story. I believe this is actually a buried lead. What was actually sent out is this pyramid. Things to think about. And there's a line saying overt white supremacy, socially unacceptable, and covert white supremacy, socially acceptable. But they mention things like saying, don't blame me, and saying things like education funding from property taxes is racist. They believe that calling the police on black people is racist. They believe color blindness, which means not judging someone based on the color of their skin, is covert white supremacy. That's what was being sent out by the Army. Now, this resulted in an investigation. They said the Army Wednesday night announced it has launched an investigation into how a presentation on racism and discrimination included a handout suggesting Donald Trump's campaign slogan, MAGA, is considered covert white supremacy. The investigation was launched after a campaign from an Alabama congressman. Now, it is freaky that they're trying to target a political slogan, Make America Great Again. What does that have to do with anything? You could make America great again because America is great in many ways, and in many ways we lost that. In fact, based on their own argument that they're trying to repeal civil rights law, you could argue that repealing civil rights law would make America great again, to them at least, right? I mean, think about it. But they think the slogan itself is covert white supremacy. This is the military using the ideology to attack a political campaign. Many wondered if this was a violation of the Hatch Act because the government, the federal government, is not supposed to be distributing partisan propaganda. But here it is. This whole list is absolutely insane. They say being a white ally, a self-appointed white ally, is white supremacy. They say police brutality is white supremacy, but police brutality can affect anybody. They say fetishizing black, indigenous, people of color is covert white supremacy. Quite literally, being attracted to non-white people is also racist. Yeah, I'm sure many of you know this stuff. I've been following this stuff for a long time. That's why I stress, please share this so people can see exactly what's going on. Because if they had any idea what was coming next, they would not like it. The CDC employees call out agency's toxic culture of racial aggressions. This is from July 13th. They're demanding, look at this, more than 1,200 current employees at the CDC have signed a letter calling for the federal agency to address ongoing and recurring acts of racism and discrimination against black employees. They say they want a national public health crisis declaration on racism. In the letter addressed to CDC Robert Redfield, the authors put their call for change in the context of the coronavirus pandemic's disproportionate impact on black people and the killing of George Floyd. In light of the recent calls for justice across this country and around the world, we as dedicated public health officials can no longer stay silent to the widespread acts of racism and discrimination within the CDC that are in fact undermining the agency's core mission. The letter offers a rare glimpse inside a famously opaque federal agency. Now, 11,000 people work here, which means just around 10% of the people are making demands on the agency in this way. But you need to understand something. Racial aggressions. You need to understand this in the context of critical race theory. That is, someone saying, I don't wish to treat you any differently because of your skin color. That's racist. That's what they're complaining about, among many other things. But isn't that what we strive for? Isn't that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream? I'm surprised every day that I see these individuals on the left invoke Martin Luther King Jr. because he would stand in opposition to the things you're saying. I mean, first of all, it was a long time ago, so the dude was probably substantially more conservative than many of these individuals because everybody was a lot more conservative way back when. More importantly, what did he say? He said, I have a dream that one day my 4 children will live in a country where they're judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And I love it. And I respect it. I mean, I was raised on that, and I still believe it to be true. I believe racism is horribly inefficient. If you were going to hire someone to do a job, and you made assumptions about how they could do that job based on their race, you'd probably end up with random levels of skill. But if you had a group of people, white, black, Mexican, Asian, and you said, I would like a job done, and here's what I'm looking for, they would offer up their portfolios, and you would say, this is the best one. I'm hiring you. Or you'd look at testimonials. Judging them based on the color of their skin is meaningless and a horrible waste of time. Take a look at the work they've done. And that's why I believe Martin Luther King Jr. was correct. But what does critical race theory tell us now? I introduce you to Ibram X. Kendi, prophet of anti-racism. And again, I will stress, this is why I say you need to share this video. They say, it is a measure of how deeply our culture is fragmented that some of the best read people in the country have never heard of Ibram X. Kendi. Most Wall Street Journal readers would probably have to Google him. But Kendi now has 4 books at or near the top of the bestsellers list, including Stamped from the Beginning, which is a history of American racism that won the National Book Award in 2016, and 2 books on racism for younger readers. Racism is Kendi's thing. His newest, How to Be an Anti-Racist, reappeared at the top of the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list this summer, having spent several months on the list last fall and winter. And most people don't know who he is. I'd like to introduce you to one of his quotes so you can better understand the ideology that Trump is trying to stop. Kendi said, "The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination," telling us outright and overtly, judge people based on their race. And there it is. He says if discrimination is creating inequity, it's racist. But if it's creating equity, it is anti-racist. This is just semantics. Discriminating against someone based on their race is bad, whether it's positive or negative. Positive discrimination would be assuming that an Asian person is good at math. That's not always true, particularly for American people who happen to be Asian. Now, culturally, in some areas of Asia, they may be good at math, but to assume that someone from Vietnam has the same level of skills as someone from China simply because they're both Asian is just ridiculous. The same is true for Indian people. That's positive discrimination. You're saying a good thing about them, but it's just not true. Or I should say that's, in a sense, positive discrimination. Another way to describe positive discrimination would be giving someone a job based on their race under these assumptions, or what they've been trying to implement in affirmative action, which is their argument for repealing civil rights law. They want positive discrimination and negative discrimination in the sense that they will tell Asian people, you must score higher than everyone else to get on the SATs to get into college. So that is specifically targeting a marginalized community, but they don't care. They just want to discriminate, to create some kind of weird, digitized, balkanized society. I don't know how else to put it. The idea being that everyone's got to be packaged in neat little boxes and they can't intermingle. That's horrifying. Trump is doing the opposite of that. His memo says we want people working together of all races to be equals. And that's the future I like. Why? Well, because of progressive ideology, because of people like Bernie Sanders, who fought for civil rights back in the 60s, I actually exist. And a lot of people know this because I bring it up, but this is particularly important to me, and it's a reason why I'm voting for Trump. I come from I'm a second generation mixed race individual on my family, and I know the history of civil rights. Progressives fought for this. The left fought for this. They won. And from the end of miscegenation laws, legalizing interracial marriage and granting civil rights, we ended up with many people who have different ethnic backgrounds. They don't like us. They say really nasty things. And I have seen the negative impacts of positive and negative discrimination on my own family. And it's nightmarish. And I will not entertain a possible world where they strip civil rights legislation away. I told my friend who's a progressive, it is your side that put these laws in place that created me and my family and the world I live in, and I will not let you strip away my rights. But they don't care because they believe in overt white collective action. And to me, that's scary. I believe Donald Trump has done something very powerful with this move, and I would absolutely implore him and others in the Republican Party to do everything they can to stop this. And that's why I'm just out. You see, look, of the Democratic Party, early on, this was within the confines of universities, and I ragged on it back then. But as the years have gone on, it's become more and more pervasive in industry and government. It should have never gotten into the federal government, but it's getting there. And I'm worried it will spread no matter what we do because these people exist. They exist. This religion exists. What Trump has done is a defensive move, but it's not perfect. It's good. It's great. I'm happy. More must be done. This must not be allowed to persist. It flies in the face of the dream of Dr. King himself. And I personally won't stand for it. We'll see how it plays out. Keep in mind, this is a major underpinning of the Black Lives Matter riots. It's why they're going around raising the fist and screaming and demanding people adhere to their religion. So please consider sharing this video to let people know. I got more content coming up, more segments at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastNews. It is a different channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.